Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. I'm just doing a quick video here as it occurred to me that I don't think I've done this type of video before as far as my color choices when it comes to stamp pads, okay? Now I happen to have some Marvy pads here, and the Marvy matchable pads have been discontinued as far as this type of case that they used to come in. They used to come in some pretty accurate kind of color schemes as far as what color was represented in terms of the ink. So they did some pretty close matching back then, and I have a feeling they canceled it because these cases must be really expensive to do, and you have to run off, I don't know, tens of thousands of those anytime they do those cases. So they now sell kind of a blank pad. It doesn't have this, this color-coded base case now. It's just kind of a neutral one, and you ink up your pad whatever color you want with their re-inker fluids that have not been discontinued, okay? But anyways, going back to my color choices, you can see here, one of the things I really liked about the Marvy pads is I used to take these around to different workshops, and we could, these are all stackable, so we can stack 24 pads in front of every participant in the workshop. And they were color-coded, so it was just easy to reach across and grab the one you want. But as you can see, I have various values in whatever hue, whatever hues in the color spectrum. Okay, so I'm always going from something light, medium, and darker. This is yellows. And of course you can see how it transitions, from yellows to oranges to reds like that, kind of in a really, gradual fashion in terms of the medium tones within the transition, okay? And then you can see how the reds kind of transitioned into, the lighter reds. It would be something more like this, okay, in reality, going into the violets, okay, which would kind of transition into blues, like this, going into the greens. So we have, the spectrum right here, like a rainbow kind of, right? And then you have the browns. I don't know where this would go. It'd probably go somewhere, I guess, on this end, like something like this. All right, and this is black. But, in the brown tones, light, medium, dark. In this one, it's not light, medium, and dark. It's just kind of a range of warm hue pinks, lighter pinks, darker pinks, violets, a little magenta in there too, but light, medium, dark, and light, medium. Well, this is light, warm green, darker green, kind of a more earthy green. Those two are about the same value, but anyways, this is the type of thing that I like, So everyone uses different pads, right? We have a lot of different pads in our collections, different brands and such. Here's a Memento one. I don't have every color of every brand of pads now, but something like the Memento, you can see, light, medium, and dark, okay? You don't have to stay with the same brands of pads either. Here's some kind of a range of green tones, warm green. Let me see if I can focus in here. Memento, right? Okay. Kind of a warm green, a little bit more of a neutral green, I guess, but like something like, what this would kind of be, you can do with something like this. I can throw the distressing mustard seed. That's a nice, really nice yellow there, transitioning into those colors. Memento potter's clay. That's kind of a more of a slightly earthy orange, but if I had something like that, something like this would transition into that one really nicely. Or if I didn't have this orange from Marvy, you can do something like that, okay? But what that does is it creates a nice transition of colors and hue, and from all these different in this range of tones, you know, like, I mean, this is a lot here. This is 24 pads just in the Marvy range. But in theory, okay, you can really use these not just as whatever color they represent in their pure form, but you can also, you know, I mean, these are dye-based inks, so they're transparent. So if I run a yellow over the top of this green, it's probably going to give me something a little bit closer to this color. So we're talking about, you know, an unlimited spectrum of colors, you know, when it comes to overlapping and the blending of, you know, all of these different tones, whatever brands and combinations you happen to use, okay? Now, I mean, sometimes if, let's say if I don't have, I like to, now if I was going to do a sunset scene, I wouldn't necessarily use 7 pads, okay, to do it. I mean, you know, you can get away with whatever, but, you know, if you kind of create a little bit more of a transition of something like this, you know, light tones, a little bit darker, kind of medium to dark, it's a little bit of an easier transition getting from this to this than going from that to that. You can see the contrast there, you know. I mean, you can do that though, but I'm just saying, if you have these other tones, you know, this mustard seed, memento, okay, potter's clay to cherry red or something like that. You can do something like that as well, okay? But anyways, so that's what I would recommend to people, you know, in terms of, you know, when they ask me, what do I recommend as far as pads go? And inevitably, you know, people have pads of some brand already. But if we're talking about kind of supplementing the pads that you have in your collection already, I would take a look, I would lay things out and take a look at your different hues that you have in your red tones, your green tones, blues, browns, and, you know, your violets. Take a look and see. I mean, if you have something like, okay, let me see, I already have a pink and a violet or something like that. You know, that's a big jump in value, right? Maybe your next pad should be something kind of in the intermediate, you know, in the middle ground, or something like this, pale violet. You know, like I said, you can use pads from other companies. So it doesn't really come down to, say, brand. For me, when I'm looking at other pad choices at this point in time with me, I'm thinking about more of the hue, more of the specific color. So if one brand has kind of something that I'm kind of going after, you know, or I don't have, you know, within my range of values and tones and whatnot, I might kind of opt for that. So that's what I really like about some brands of ink, some lines of inks, you know, like the Distress inks are really cool. They're kind of more of like that earthy looking hue than, say, you know, a bright version of whatever hue it is, you know. Those are really fun to kind of incorporate in with my existing pads, something like this. Antique linen, or like the walnut one right here, is a really good ink to go with something like my brown Marvies that I really like, you know, that pale orange brown and dark brown. Looks black here in the video, but yeah, you can see it right there. So something like that. So the Distress inks are really good for your brown tones, of course, you know, those earthy types of color schemes. So anyways, that's my little video on that, you know, in terms of, you know, if you're looking to potentially supplement your ink, your whatever, your range of inks and pads that you have, you know, take a look at something like this and lay them out and see what you have and make it visual. You know, that's what I always recommend, as opposed to saying, okay, in my head, you know, I have a blue and then I have a, you know, a turquoise blue or something like that. Just lay it out and see what you have. And then sometimes it's a little bit more obvious, you know, what, you know, maybe you can use. Like, say, if I have something like this, here's some warm tones or something like that, you know. Maybe I need an orange or something like that. Or, you know, if you know a little bit about color blending, let's say, you know, I don't want to I want to buy one pad or something like that. Well, maybe instead of going with an orange, you can go with something like a pink, okay? Because what happens when you blend in, like you overlap yellow with pink, you'll get something like an orange, okay? Because red and orange, pink is a lighter version of red mixed to form orange, so kind of if it's one or the other, you can do something like that. It'll be, but the thing about the pink is that, you know, you can mix it with blue and you can get a violet, okay? Now, you might be saying, okay, well, why should I get any pads? You know, you can just get the primary colors of just blue, yellow, and blue, yellow, and red, and you can, in theory, mix, you know, all those pads together. Well, you know what I mean? That's just, for when I'm stamping, that's just too much work, so I'd rather have just have the ink, you know, choice there as opposed to mixing everything. But I would if I had to, though. So, you know, I don't know. That's your basic, my basic, real simplistic theory on, I don't know, color choices and whatnot. And then you get into all these other types of inks as well. And I don't know, if you're a stamper and crafter, we love our ink pads, don't we, and our colors. That and paper, you know. So, anyways, just a simple way to maybe look at your pads, you know, in the future, or as kind of supplements, too. Oh, and that being said, don't forget about re-inkers. If you're using a ton of ink, you know, of a certain color, I happen to use light blues a lot in scenic stamping. You know, another thing you can think of as well, if you want an alternative to another pad, okay, if you're using a lot of a certain color, you might think about just getting a re-inker for it or something like that. One of these re-inker bottles, you know, can re-ink a pad many, many times, but you can also just reuse the re-inker and some sort of sponging applicator. This is a stylus tool, and you can put this into that sponge and just use it like that, and there's a lot more ink. What I'm getting at is there's a lot more ink in a re-inker bottle typically than what is in a pad, okay? I don't really make, you know, I mean, some of these colors I don't make too many impressions of, like, I don't make too many impressions with something like a lime green, okay? Usually that's a color that I'm applying into my stamped imagery, so maybe you know, if you're going to buy one or the other, maybe you'd think about buying something like the re-inker bottle instead, which is going to have a lot more ink than the pad, and just using it on an applicator, and or just putting that ink into like a little watercolor palette or something like that, and just inking it up like so, and applying it onto your scene. Okay? So anyways, hope that helps for some people. I've had questions in the past as far as ink choices and whatnot, and you know, I always say, if there's a certain brand that you really like or something like that, you know, get those ones, but look at your range and see what you have. Some brands of inks, or ranges of inks, lines of inks, don't have, you know, the full value range. And that's where you can just easily pick up a pad from a different company or a different line within that same company's line, and just, you know, fit that into, you know, your value scale as far as ink values go. Okay? Thanks for watching.